Hi everyone, I want to go over the next assignment, which is the needs assessment vendor comparison assignment. And I'm hoping that this will kind of help you as you move through the assignment tasks. So the first task that you have is to create a plan that addresses how you as the project manager are going to conduct a functional needs assessment for this organization. Now, if you haven't read Chapter 7 in the Margaret A. textbook, this is a must for this assignment. It really kind of follows this chapter as you move through the different tasks, okay? So not only do you need to create this plan, but you also need to ensure that the plan addresses how you are going to ensure that input is gathered from all staff and departments for functional requirements. So what are the needs of those staff and how can you address those needs? You also, a lot of times, by gathering input and kind of reaching out to all these staff and different departments, you are in turn gaining their support and buy-in. And so, as a project manager, you need to address how you're going to ensure executive management support, medical staff, clinical staff, and end user buy-in, okay? Also, I want you to address how you will identify the internal and external information needs of the organization. When we think of internal information needs, think about department to department. What does admissions need from the lab and vice versa? What does coding and billing need from admissions and vice versa, okay? The other thing down here in italics, the bottom of the slide, this is something I want you to keep in mind as you move throughout this entire assignment. So it's really important to consider what makes this specialty unique as compared to a hospital or clinic, right? An ophthalmology clinic or a minute clinic is going to have different needs than, say, an acute care hospital and a regular primary care clinic, right? And so I want you to really consider the different types of functionality, technology, implementation, ongoing support, and vendor characteristic needs of your specialty. So it's extremely important that you go out there and research. And please make sure you read the introduction to the assignment because it gives you some advice on where you may be able to go to identify the needs of your or functionality requirements for electronic health records for your specialty. Okay. So a functional needs assessment, and right away, please excuse my typo on there. I didn't catch it before I started sharing this with all of you. So functional needs assessment really describes the key capabilities or application requirements for the organization that the organization has envisioned and what they need. These functional requirements are used to screen vendors as product choices are made, and that's exactly what you're going to be doing in this assignment. And so if you're kind of wondering what are some examples of functional requirements, go to pages 182 to 184 in the Margaret A. text. And as you identify functional needs requirements and as you address this in task number 1 here of the assignment, you may want to consider performing one of these assessment methods as you look to gathering input from those end users and different departments. So maybe it's surveying, use cases, functional capabilities inventory, applications inventory, reports inventory, and so on. And all of these are explained and defined in the Margaret A. textbook. I don't want to take up your time right here by going into each of them when she does a really great job in her text. All right, so the next task is you are going to identify some key differentiators for your organization, so for your specialty. Okay, so oftentimes there are definitely needs that your organization has that are not going to be just defined or addressed by a vendor in an RFP, okay? And so you need to come up with different ways to address those. And one way is to first identify these key differentiators, and then we're going to talk about due diligence next, okay? So you need to identify 15 to 20 key differentiators or needs for your organization that are unique to your specialty and put them in the table. And I'm going to show you the table and an example in a second. But I also want to mention and highlight that I really do not want you to duplicate the meaningful use criteria. Okay, these need to be unique and they need to be kind of developed on your own. Okay. So here's an example. I took this from a student from like 4 years ago, where we looked at, they were assigned dermatology as their specialty. So here is the table that you're going to have to complete. And notice that there are 4 kind of headings there. There's comprehensive functionality, technology, implementation, ongoing support, and then vendor characteristics. And what I've done here is provided some examples of those different types of functionality, technology, support, and vendor characteristics, okay, for this practice. And so this kind of gives you an idea of what I mean when I want your key differentiators to be unique to your practice, okay? And I think I have one thing that I want to just kind of go over, as I thought this was an important thing to pull from the text, was a request for information. So they used to do formal requests for information where you'd send a letter and request information from a specific vendor. But now you can gather almost all of this information from a vendor's website, okay? So as you're researching these key differentiators, start looking at vendor pages and what they have to offer and some of the unique characteristics of their electronic health records, and maybe some of that functionality and technology that comes with their products, okay? So I just wanted to kind of bring this up at this point because I think it might also be helpful for you as you're completing that table. Now, for the next task, you need to identify the form or forms of due diligence that will reveal the best information for each of the key differentiators, okay? So how are you going to ensure that this product, or how can you evaluate this product to make sure that your need or your key differentiator is going to be addressed, or they have the functionality as part of their electronic health record that will support that need, okay? So this will make a lot more sense when I show you the example, but we're going to use sorry about that. We're going to use the RFP, an EHR demonstration, a site visit to another organization using that EHR product or vendor, conducting a reference check, or conducting a corporate check as our forms of due diligence for this assignment. So let's kind of look at them a little bit. So the request for proposal, which hopefully you all have had a course that addresses RFPs previously, but this kind of goes over the components of an RFP. So as it says here, it's a formal invitation for vendors to submit bids. And this document should address a lot of information, okay? It should address functional specifications, operational requirements, some of those things. And so this is one form of due diligence that you could use to evaluate a vendor, okay? The next thing is how, how you can go about beyond the RFP and evaluating a vendor or the finalists, okay? I'm sorry. I got sidetracked here, lost my train of thought. And so performing a due diligence to further narrow the field could be an EHR demonstration. So this would be the vendor coming into your organization, providing you with a demonstration, or maybe it's a WebEx virtual demonstration. The next item on the list is site visits. So say that your organization knows that 2 cities away, there's another organization that is using the same or using this EHR, and you would physically go to that site. And sometimes the vendor is present during those site visits, and sometimes they're not, just depends. But you could go to that site and visit them and have them kind of talk about how they're using that EHR, pros, cons, how the implementation went, and those kinds of things. Obviously, checking references, so talking with previous clients or current clients is a great way to evaluate a vendor. And then corporate visits, which is more like, how do I want to say it? It's like checking to make sure that this organization or this EHR vendor is sound. You know, are they on the up and up? How are they rated? You know, from a class or a, you know, are they meeting the national criteria for EHRs? Those kinds of things are more like the corporate check that I'm talking about here. All right, so I've taken that example and taken it one step farther here. I don't want to just give you all these answers, but I want to show you an example. So in the due diligence column, you're going to identify the forms of due diligence that you will use to evaluate and ensure that that vendor can provide this functionality, technology, or have it, the vendor support that technology, what type of implementation and ongoing support do they provide, and then the vendor characteristics. So as you can see here, for this first key differentiator, they want customizable and easy to manage practice schedules. So they want to be able to use it to schedule providers and schedule exam rooms. So to do that, they would use, or they would consider using the RFP, a demonstration by the vendor, and then also conducting a site visit. And so you need to kind of evaluate for every single key differentiator, how are you going to do your due diligence in order to evaluate that vendor on these key differentiator points. All right, last task of the assignment. So you need to perform market research for your assigned specialty to understand the EHR products that are available out there. And I want you to identify 2 EHR vendors for your specialty or sector of healthcare and enter the names of the vendors in the table. So where I had vendor A and vendor B, you're going to type in the names of the vendors, and then based on your market research and the information you can obtain from that vendor website, go ahead and rate the vendor on each of the key differentiator or needs using the rating scale that is identified in your assignment instructions, and I've copied it here for you. Okay. So that kind of wraps it up. I just wanted to highlight the deliverables. So first you're going to have that plan, right, that it addresses how you're going to conduct a functional needs assessment. I've updated the assignment to not include the technical needs because I think that that is just too much for you to address right now. So please just how you're going to address how you're going to conduct a functional needs assessment for your organization. And then the other deliverable is the completed table. So you're going to have on the table 15 to 20 key differentiators. You're going to identify the forms of due diligence that you're going to use for each differentiator. You're going to identify 2 EHR vendors for your specialty or sector of healthcare, and then you're going to rate both the vendors for each key differentiator. Okay, and don't forget to cite your sources in APA format, so include a reference page. And as always, if you have any questions about this, do not hesitate to reach out to me. Okay, all right, I hope this goes better than the last assignment, and I wish you all the best of luck. All right, have a good day. Bye.